We're supposed to believe that toxic masculinity is just this terrible thing that just absolutely sucks. But for some reason, we've allowed women to come into our hobbies and entertainment and replace it with misandry. They don't even disguise this up anymore, whether it be sitcom, idiot dads all over the place, the incompetent husband that you see all over commercials, women kicking men in the balls, constantly slapping men, throwing drinks in their face, trying to be funny, cops threatening to rape other men. Female on male violence is at an all-time high as far as just entertainment or whatever. People like to laugh at wives beating the shit out of their husbands nowadays, as if toxic masculinity was this bad thing, but they've just replaced it with something that's probably even worse.
Yeah, they've replaced it with, toxic femininity, which is, just kind of this like man-hating, ball-busting kind of entertainment. But, the thing is that only plays to the crowd that's in the writer's room. Your Los Angeles-based box wine drinking, type of female writers, and that's why these projects don't tend to do very well. You put together these action movies where you've got 110-pound women beating up 250-pound men, and it just your brain just recognizes the fact that this is not possible. This is not something that is within the realm of possibility, and it seems ridiculous. And it doesn't seem like women are very into it either. We've seen the Marvels flop. We're about to watch Madam Web flop. All these things that are specifically designed so that women can be part of the the action movie, and it doesn't really seem to be resonating with them. It seems to be that most women actually like men and like to watch movies where men are masculine and doing masculine heroic things.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's almost like they're courting this weird little subsection that most people don't like anyway. When you're on social media and the lady has the tweet or whatever, and it's like, is it going to be a girl or an abortion? Oh, that's absolutely hilarious. You're going to murder somebody based on their gender. That's not toxic whatsoever. And those are the kind of people that you're not just allowing into the community, but you're forsaking all the other people so you can invite these just disgusting people and their disgusting views on gender and all this stuff into everything. It's not just hobbies and entertainment, but that's obviously what we're going to focus on here.
It's kind of the same thing that we're seeing. We're seeing it throughout society, just the whittling away of tent poles, trying to break down, what has worked for society for countless millennia, kind of gender roles and switching everything up. And it's just creating a lot more unhappiness. Men are certainly more unhappy. Women are certainly more unhappy than ever. And instead of, trying to find what makes them happy and what the ways that we can kind of come together and heal these divisions, they're just doubling down on being divisive again and again and again. It's all a planned agenda, I think. And, obviously entertainment is a good way to get that agenda across.
You almost don't even notice it anymore. I was reading X-Men this week. They're in the Fall of X or whatever, and there's a panel where Emma Frost has two men on their knees, and she's got dog collars around them, and she's walking them around like dogs. That's absolutely hilarious. You're always seeing guys get kicked in the balls. The idiot dad thing is so freaking cliche at this point. I would be shocked if you could get a guy on a TV show portraying a dad as someone a kid should actually look up to, which has certainly played a part in the dissolution of kind of Western society and the breakdown of the modern family and all that kind of stuff, where we don't even respect men anymore. I remember Tom King was out there wishing his mother a happy Father's Day. Like, yeah, they don't get every other day.
It's the most soy thing in the world. Men can be bad fathers and women can be terrible mothers. It's not a gender problem. It's a human problem. And that's one of the things that we need to remember. The Emma Frost example is really interesting because if you reverse the roles on that, if you had a man with two women on a leash and walking them like dogs, visually, the moment you see that, you're like, that guy is a villain. And that's the same thing that you think when you see Emma Frost doing it. You're like, oh, she's engaging in villainous behavior, but it's treated as heroic when she does it. And that's the disconnect. That's what it doesn't connect with women except for your most bitter, angry, Los Angeles feminists. And it doesn't connect with men either. So it's like, who is it for? Why are all these writers writing for this very small subset of people that doesn't buy comic books, but this is what you think that you're going to draw people in with? Or are you just doing it because you don't care about drawing people in? You don't care about making sales. You don't care about the industry. All you care about is getting out your personal grievances through these established properties.
Now, we do have a few examples. These are actually more from movies. Two of them, I think, people will be like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what that was. And one that I think was a lot more subversive, but you probably noticed it when that happened as well. The character of Rey had endless potential. After all, who doesn't want to see a female Jedi who's as badass as Ellen Ripley was in the Alien film series from the 1980s, However, that potential was ruined by the fact that she never materialized into anything other than a Mary Sue. We saw Rey effortlessly winning at everything, easily defeating the likes of more skilled and powerful Ben Solo, and even besting the most powerful Jedi in history of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker. In contrast, the male characters in these films were all written as weak, clueless, incompetent buffoons who are lucky to bask in the glory of Rey. And I certainly remember the moment where she's running with Finn, and she's, "Stop grabbing my hand." I was like, what a stupid moment in a movie.
Yeah, they wanted Rey to have this kind of like Ellen Ripley thing, but the thing that you have to remember about Ellen Ripley is that she was just an every woman. She was basically just a person on a salvage barge, and she had to rise to the occasion. And that's what she did. And by the time you get to her in Aliens, she's still not perfect. She's just ballsy. And it works out for her because of her determination. But she's not just perfect at everything. She, none of it falls into place for her. It's a struggle for her. She has to steel her resolve to actually go down into the alien queen's hive and rescue Newt, and she's terrified, but she does it, and that's why we identify with her. That's why everybody loves Ellen Ripley so much, is because even though it's a female protagonist, men can recognize what she's doing. Men can empathize, and they can understand that like she's going down there. And not every man around her was weak. You had some weak men in there. You had Paul Reiser, who was the sleazy corporate guy. You had Gorman, who was the CEO that was not fit for the job, and just completely fell apart under pressure. But you had guys in there too, like you had Apone, you had you had Hicks, you had all these other male characters that were competent at what they did, and even Hudson, who loses his shit. In the end, when it comes down to the final battle, he's there standing with them shoulder to shoulder, and he doesn't back down, goes down fighting. Nobody hated Vasquez. Everybody loved Vasquez in that movie. Every guy was like, Vasquez is badass because, she did what she had to do. And the only time that there was any emasculation is when the guys were giving her shit and she gave it back. And the guys respect that.
Well, and also you talk about Ripley and Aliens. By the end, her motivation is pretty much maternal instinct. There's a little girl there. She has no family left. I'm the only one that's going to protect her. And her maternal instincts come over. That's completely relatable. You can see a mom lifting up a car to save her kid or something like that. It wasn't girl power. It was her trying to do something for somebody else.
Yeah, and in turn, it became a girl power thing, but a girl power in a very natural way, in a way that everybody could identify with, and not in just like a manufactured, I'm going to show the men kind of way.
Absolutely. The next example that they gave, the subplot between Holdo and Poe was absolutely ludicrous, and all the conflict arose from Holdo's absolute refusal to explain her plan to anyone. The all-powerful and wise feminist complete with purple hair was clearly too far above the silly, impulsive pilot, and for no logical reason at all withheld, everything. In response, since everyone was about to die, Poe made his own plans. Those ended up backfiring, of course. Also, the audience could see how stupid the man was and how wise the woman leader was. And I remember seeing it going, oh my goodness, basically she's manufactured a freaking mutiny on the ship because she just wasn't sharing basic information, despite Poe being like fucking Leia's right-hand man at the time.
And having just saved them, like they admitted in the earlier part of the film, he disobeyed orders, but he saved everybody. And, she created a mutiny. That's not on Poe. That's on her, for the way she was getting people killed and making, these poor decisions and not telling anybody that she had an ultimate plan. And when she does reveal her ultimate plan, it's not even a good plan. And you could have saved a lot of lives, like if you had just presented what you were doing, to Poe, and then there could have been a discussion and you could have crafted a much better plan. Aren't we told that diversity is our strength? So yeah, bring in that diversity, have some different opinions come in on your plan and maybe come up with something better. Last Jedi is just such a terrible example of writing from the message instead of writing from the characters. It's like, this is what you wanted to happen. You wanted to make a point about the impulsive male and you wanted to elevate this female, but because that was your plan and you didn't do it organically, everything just felt forced and terrible. And that's why Last Jedi is the most divisive Star Wars movie of all time. And it's basically the franchise killer. And
I don't particularly like Rey. There's a lot of potential with Rey, but I think Holdo is so much worse. Completely stoic, never shows any emotion whatsoever. Is just a complete ball buster, talks to nobody, feels like they're above everybody. And in the end, you just hate the character. All sight unseen, you don't ever want to see her again. I was glad she died, even though it kind of pokes big holes within Star Wars lore. And why weren't they doing that to begin with?
Yeah, no, that movie destroys so much about the Star Wars universe, and that's why it's never really recovered from it. And I don't think that it will for, decades, if ever.
Yeah, I still remember the end. This isn't so much about Misandry or whatever, but when they decided that they're going to free all the animals that were in captivity, that they were racing, whatever, but they left like the humans in slavery. As you've mentioned, they're writing for a message. They're not writing about the characters. So something as simple as that we're freeing racing dogs, but we're going to leave the little boy, in bondage, goes right over their heads because they weren't thinking about that.
I'll give you another example of writing for the message or writing for a joke. I just came off of seeing Madam Web, which, by the way, not a particularly woke movie as people would define it. Just kind of a bad 90, kind of a throwback to 90s superhero films, in that it's just not very good, not very well put together, and feels like everything was a first draft. But there's a moment in the movie where they're writing from this idea to make this joke. Mary Parker has just given birth to Peter. And Ben, who is played by Adam Scott and is the best character in the movie should be about him. He's gotten her to the hospital because Richard's out of town. So he's there with his sister, and Peter's been born. And then the girls walk in and they say to Madam Web, hey, he's so happy, with the baby, all of the fun and none of the responsibility. And Cassandra Webb makes this comment about like, well, that'll change, or he'll see, which means that she knows that Mary and Richard Parker are going to die, and she's not going to do a damn thing about it. But that's the unintended consequence. They wanted that little reference in there, so people went, oh, because he's going to end up with Peter, but they didn't think about the implications of it. And that's the whole of this, the Star Wars movie is by Rian Johnson, is he has all these messages, all these ideas that he wants to get across, that he wants to cram into your head, but he doesn't think about the implications of any of them. And that's why that movie broke Star Wars.
The final example they give of kind of misandry within Hollywood that I thought was kind of appropriate for the channel here, another example of subversive feminism hiding among an otherwise decent film, is the subtle misandry of Wonder Woman. Again, I don't think anyone had a problem with Gal Gadot or any strong female lead. Rather, some fans were irritated by the disgusting lines like this. They came to the conclusion that men are essential for procreation, but when it comes to pleasure, unnecessary. And it is an eye roller, and it's just thrown in there just so it can have an extra feminist edge to it when it doesn't even really belong within the context of the story.
I don't know, Wes, if you've watched two women make love, you realize that men really are just good for, spreading our seed and dying in war, right? That's all we're good for.
Oh, man, my wife seems to like me quite a bit.
No, and that's the funny thing, is like they're writing for an audience that is so small and so niche. Like I said, most women kind of like men. That's why there's so many people on the planet. Is because people get together, men and women, and they procreate and they have families, and that's why we have the population that we do. In a world where men weren't necessary, there wouldn't be much of a world left, because number one, who would do all the manual labor, who would do all the dangerous jobs, and who would defend the homeland, who would defend the homestead. Women can be a part of that, certainly, and I love a movie.
Well, according
or story
to the Woman King, the Woman King would do it. Of course, when you actually go and read the historical context, you realize 10 French soldiers killed 400 of them in a battle. And you're like, well, maybe they weren't quite as competent as that movie made them out to look.
Yeah, it also glossed over a lot of things that they did that would be frowned upon by today's society. And they just kind of like glossed over that, didn't they? Interesting.
Yeah, The Woman King. There's a movie only a filmmaker could love. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like, look, you know what I liked? I liked that movie Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron. She kicks a lot of ass in that movie. But she kicks guys' asses in a sensible way. She never really overpowers any of these bigger men. She just fights smarter. And by the end of the movie, she is torn up. Like, she can barely walk by the end of that movie. She's dragging her leg behind her. She's beat to hell because she's had to go through all of these killers that are so much bigger than her. And she's taken a ton of damage. And that's one of those things that in a movie where I just found it refreshing. You get thrown through a bathroom sink, you're going to feel it. And that's going to affect you the rest of the movie. It's one of the things that I really hated about John Wick 4 in particular, was he takes so much physical damage in that movie. And it's like, this is a guy in his 50s. There's no way he would fall down 200 concrete stairs and be, running back up those stairs a minute later.
You know what I don't like about John Wick 2 is the 90-pound model that's supposed to be his like equal when it comes to fighting, even though she's clearly handicapped and would have never been in special forces or any of that stuff. We're just supposed to take her seriously, the lady that played Batwoman or whatever on the CW.
Yeah, and there's certain things like that where it's like, I don't mind suspension of disbelief for, the rule of cool. But you can push it too far where it's no longer cool and it's just kind of stupid. And that's one of those instances, just like, all of
what
John
is
Wick
it,
4.
Ruby Rose?
Yeah, Ruby Rose.
Not a convincing action hero because she has no muscle on her body whatsoever.
No, she's very, very small, very petite.
She's a model.
When you see Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2 and she's buff, you're like, okay, I still don't buy that she's gonna, beat up a guy that's like on her equal fighting level. But I can see her beating the shit out of that psychiatrist. I can see her beating the shit out of a lot of the orderlies, as she's trying to get out of there. She's trained for it and she's put in the work to be as strong as she can possibly be. But yeah, when you've got somebody with no muscle tone who's throwing around like these big dudes, it's not realistic. Movies don't always have to be realistic, but you have to at least not make me go, oh, come on.
Exactly. You know what's a great example of how to do it right? The Long Kiss Goodnight, Gina Davis. That movie's great.
Oh, I love. Yeah, that's an unsung gem that nobody really talks about anymore. That movie's fantastic.
Is that Black? Shane Black?
Yeah, Shane Black. Yeah,
probably the best movie he ever wrote besides Predator.
Yeah, I think so. It's absolutely fantastic. It's believable. Everything she does is believable. Even at the end when she's fighting the main bad guy, it's like she takes a lot of damage. She ends up beating him by being more clever, but they're throwing down pretty hard, and she's taking her lumps. It's not one of those things where she just does a couple flips and grabs him with her legs and does a Hurricane Rana and he's out for the count, and she's fine. You really see the brutality of their fight. There
comes a time where she's a mom, but she doesn't want to be a mom, and then she's starting to realize, wait, that's my daughter, and she becomes a better fighter because she's completely driven by the fact that she has to protect this little girl from this killer or whatever. And now you're starting to talk about, oh, she came back to reality, became a human again. She's not just a killing machine. And it was a great character arc. Yeah, it's her disassociative identity that she's created, kind of like merges together with, her motherly persona merges together with the cold assassin that she is, in reality. And she becomes a more well-rounded character and she fights for her daughter. And it's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like they've rejected true femininity for this manufactured femininity that is just based on trying to out-masculine men. Well, the only men you're going to out-masculine are the ones that are also in LA, eating their tofu dogs and whatnot. You're never going to out-masculine genuine men, and it's foolish to try. Celebrate your femininity. It's so magical. The things that women can do and the skills that women possess and the things that they bring to the table in the family unit. I don't know why you would ever want to be men. No, me neither. And I'm so tired of the strong female character that displays zero emotion throughout an entire series, throughout an entire movie. If there's no emotion to the character, there's no buy-in to the character. How am I supposed to enjoy their journey if I don't know when they're at their bottom and when they've risen to the top? Yeah, the stoic female character is so bland, and it's so blandly acted in general that it makes it really hard to invest in them. It's not always easy to invest in stoic male characters. Like, it's a very delicate balance of having a character be stoic and be reserved, but we still have to at some point break through that and see who they are and see them exposed for, all the things that they're trying to hide and all the things that they're trying to cover. And when you don't do that, and you're not allowed to do that with women in movies right now, they have to be stoic all the time and they always have to be right. And nobody invests in a character that's always right. We don't know anybody who's always right. Everybody screws up. Everybody makes mistakes. What we identify with is characters that have to overcome obstacles. And sometimes those obstacles are their own flaws. Sometimes they're the thing that are in their way and they have to learn the lesson. They have to get out of their way. And that's what we identify with in stories. And that's what makes us, celebrate and love characters, is when we can recognize the failings of our own humanity in them. And you're just not allowed to do that with female characters right now in Hollywood. Absolutely. Now, if people want more of great conversations like this one, there is a Patreon level where Aaron Sparrow stars with the never-ending Christmas tree. We've got another hour and 40 minutes to go talking about all the latest in pop culture and comic book news. You're going to be reviewing Transformers #5 and Madam Web this week?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Madam Web. I went last night, went down and joined Chris Gore and the Film Threat crew. Other great YouTubers like I got to meet Baggage Claim for the first time. What a delightful lady she is. And we had a blast. Just that movie was something.
And that will be available on the Patreon when this comes up on YouTube's.